Hello, I'm Paul Feely, the Middle East Partnership Officer for the Episcopal Church. Welcome to one of our feature presentations as we celebrate the centennial of the Good Friday offering. This year, we're celebrating a century of gifts and rejoicing in 2,000 years of good news. For the past 100 years, Episcopalians have generously shared their love, compassion, and financial gifts to support ministry in the Anglican Communion province of Jerusalem and the Middle East. These gifts have made an amazing difference in the lives of many people in the homeland of Jesus and beyond. More about that in just a moment. In June of 2006, the Bishop of Nevada went to the 75th General Convention in Columbus, Ohio. 7 days later, Bishop Katharine Jefferts Schori went home with a new calling from God and from the Church. She had been the 26th presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, which she served with distinction until 2015. She was the first woman in that role and the first to lead a province of the Anglican Communion. As presiding bishop, Jefferts Schori championed the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, issues of domestic poverty, climate change, and care for the earth, and equal inclusion of LGBTQ Episcopalians. She worked hard to expand the understanding of the average Episcopalian as to who we were and are as a body, reminding the Church frequently that the Episcopal Church is an international body with 11 dioceses serving a wide variety of nations outside the United States. That care and attention beyond our own borders extended to the Good Friday offering. In a special Time magazine report on women who are changing the world, Bishop Katharine said, "What I hear from others is that seeing a woman in this particular role expands people's imaginations. The image of God is broader and more diverse than anything any human being can imagine. And if we can't model the image of God in its diversity, we're not reading the Bible in its fullness." Bishop Katharine, thank you for helping to expand our imaginations and enabling us to see the greater diversity of God by your ministry. Thank you as well for your support of the Good Friday offering and for taking some time today to share something of its story during your time as our primate. Bishop Katharine, in 2008, after you had been the presiding bishop for about 2 years or so, you had a rather unique opportunity in terms of presenting the Good Friday offering. Could you share something of that story with us?
I'd be happy to. I was able to visit the Diocese of Jerusalem and its wider context at that time. Bishop Suhail Dawani was the bishop of the Diocese of Jerusalem at that point, and he was getting ready to open a daycare center in Ramallah. And we presented him the check there, and it was just a great delight to be in the presence of this burgeoning new ministry and the hope and possibility for young children to grow up together. That has been Archbishop Dawani's, I think, goal in all of the ministry he exercised there, that people of different faiths might come together and come to understand the presence of God in one another. And starting in very small children, it is a wonderful gift to be able to do that.
Later that year or early the next year, you wrote a letter to the church inviting them to make contributions to the Good Friday offering. And you talked about the offering as expressing our own commitment to walk with the Church of Jerusalem in the Middle East as they continue to work towards justice, reconciliation, and peace. And then you wrote, "Through our support of these churches, we're helping to realize God's vision of shalom." Can you share with us a little of what that gift of shalom looks like and what you meant by that?
Shalom is a Hebrew word that really is about the presence of the reign of God, the realized presence of peace with justice for all people. It is that for which we pray in the Lord's Prayer daily, that we might have food to eat, that we might have peace with our brothers and sisters and siblings across the world, and that we might be in right relationship with human beings and all creation. It is a cosmic understanding of what peace is able to be. There are many instances in the Hebrew parts of the Bible that speak about that, the great banquet on the hillside, the lion lying down with the lamb. We live in a world that is urgently in need of that kind of peace and justice, and we're seeing it right now in the war in Ukraine. We're seeing it in the ongoing struggles between Palestine and Israel. We see it in our own nation politically, but there is the ability to find shalom in our daily lives if we're willing to look for it. And the aim of the Good Friday offering is to bring that reality to people's lives in the here and now.
The Anglican presence in the Middle East, of course, goes beyond Israel-Palestine. Again, in another one of your Good Friday letters, you talked about the ministry and the witnessing throughout the Gulf states, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Iran, Cyprus, across the Mediterranean coast, Africa, from Egypt to Algeria. A wonderful geography lesson you were giving us, I must say, of the Middle East. But then you wrote, the Episcopal Church in Jerusalem in the Middle East strives to be a voice of reconciliation among religions, and its institutions continue their ministries of compassion, healing, and education, and they serve all the dispossessed and disheartened, whatever their faith tradition. And just in thinking around the kind of interfaith implications of that, was that a sort of central part in your thinking around the Good Friday offering?
Absolutely. The Diocese of Jerusalem has, for a century and more, been a source of peacemaking in the Middle East. They understand that as their charism, their particular gift. They bring people together across divides to seek shalom in the world. The offering goes to the variety of nations that you listed. Some of them are no longer there, because they're in their own province. But the work of the Diocese of Cyprus and the Gulf is a great example. I had the privilege of consecrating a new bishop in Wyoming a year ago, and he spent a number of years in Qatar at the Interfaith Center there. And that is the core of the ministry of that congregation, to provide worship space and possibility and conversation for peoples of many different varieties. The Diocese of Cyprus and the Gulf also has a long history of doing that kind of reconciling work that the Diocese of Jerusalem has encouraged for so many years. When we're able to see the humanity in someone who seems to differ from us, the ability to see the image of God in that person is a piece of what Shalom is about. And the Good Friday offering goes to make that possible. On that same trip many years ago, we went to Gaza and we visited Al-Ali Arab Hospital, which is chaired and led by a remarkable woman named Suhaila Tarasi. And I visited with a Muslim man who was a patient there, and he sang the praises in Arabic of the ministry that was provided by the hospital, healing work. That's what we're about as Christians. That's what Muslims understand that they are about. That's what Jews understand that they are about. And when we're focused on the core of our faith, miracles happen.
I know when you talk about some of the Gulf states as well, they are not allowed legally to evangelize in a traditional way that one might try to evangelize in an African country, for example. But they talk a great deal about a ministry of presence, of being faithful to what they're called to do from the scriptures in living out their faith. And I think for the Bishop of Wyoming and for others, that's really at the core and the heart of how they're able to take their ministry seriously in places where no direct evangelism is quite allowed.
Absolutely. And in the Diocese of Jerusalem, you will frequently hear people talking about living stones, the living human beings who are living their faith in ways that other people can see. They build a city in the midst of difficulty and war, in the midst of conflict, in the midst of pain.
In 2011, you actually anticipated our centennial this year because you said for almost a century, the Good Friday offering has been a source of support, love, and hope. And then you also noted that you had been deeply moved by stories of pain and conflict and division. And it brings to the lives of every person in that province of the Anglican Communion a sense of hope coming from the Good Friday offering. Is there a sense of that story that you might recall or that comes to mind?
I can remember visiting with Bishop Dewani a church building that had been destroyed by bombs, I think. And his work in gathering other members of the diocese and the surrounding community to rebuild and reopen and reconsecrate that building. It is now functioning as a church. When destruction comes along, people of faith don't despair. They gather their neighbors and get busy. And the Good Friday offering has helped to rebuild and reconstruct things that have been desecrated so that new life may emerge in that place.
Last but not least, and I think you've already hinted at this in a number of your responses, why is it important to you to support the Good Friday offering?
Because we are part of one another. It is a gift from the church in the Episcopal Church, from the many churches that are part of the body of the Episcopal Church, to our neighbors across the world as an act of faithfulness, as an act of solidarity, as an act of love, that the body might become more whole in the process.
Bishop, thank you so very much for sharing your gift of story, your gift of shalom with us. And on behalf of all those involved with the Good Friday offering, we thank you for taking the time to be with us this day.
Blessings on you. Thank you.